Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to use a game design document and what a game design document is. So let's take a look at what a game design document is. It's a tool that we use to communicate between members of our team. So it's a communication aid. It's, for example, when you're going to be talking to a team member, you're going to be pulling out a napkin and a big felt tip pen and drawing a diagram on that napkin to just show him something you're talking about. Well, that diagram probably ought to go in the game design document. Anything that's used to illustrate a point to help your communication, say, hey, refer back to that diagram, it's this element of that diagram, that probably belongs in your GDD. So that's every member of your team, right? So that could be the artists, that could be the developers and the designers and everybody else who communicates, let's say your marketing strategies, etc., etc. And the idea is you are collecting this data so you can talk about common reference points. Every game, every major game, every game that's significantly large will have its own glossary. It will have its own set of words that have meaning specific to this project, and that really ought to be in the GDD, for example. It's also a place to record your decision, the decision you're going to be making about what's in and what's out of your game. And what's out is actually really important. It's really easy to define what's in and then have the scope creep up on you while you're developing. It's really useful to, at the beginning when you decide we're not going to be doing this, to write it down and set it in stone so that nobody gets tempted afterwards to add a feature that doesn't really add value to your game. Or maybe you want to keep something for another game or for a downloadable content pack, whatever you want to do. That's why you record your decisions in the GDD. And that's before you actually start development and also during your development. So the GDD is actually a living document. It's something that's going to be changed and modified according to what happens, according to the new things you learn. So let's say you want to create a new diagram to explain a new system you've built for the code so that the designer can use it. Well, that's halfway through development, and that also goes in your GDD. And it's not a plan. It's not something you use to plan your work. It's something you use to communicate and to record your decisions. And it's really useful even if you're on your own and you're not talking to somebody else, because a lot of the time you're communicating to your future self. You want to be able to make a decision or think of a system and say, hey, future self, me in 6 months' time is actually another person. And that's really useful to have a place to record those kind of things, your thinking and your decisions, so that you can use it in the future. So how are we going to be using a GDD in this game? Well, let's take a look at our GDD for Number Wizard UI. So we've got it kept in it's very simple, right? It's a very, very simple GDD. We've got it kept in Google Docs, and that's because we want to be able to share it and work on it separately, and when we're working remotely, when we're making games for this course. And the idea is we've got this simple flow diagram which shows how the scenes are hang together and how they communicate and how the player goes through scenes, as well as some sample mock-up scenes which we have underneath. And those are pretty simple. You can see it's only 2 pages, or 3 pages rather, but there's very little in there. And that's because Number Wizard UI is a really simple game, so it doesn't need all that much stuff. We could add a little bit about the rules of Number Wizard, but really the rules of Number Wizard are actually encoded already in the previous GDD we made for Number Wizard console. So we don't really need to worry too much about that because those are pretty well defined. What we do want to worry about, however, is this scene diagram. So the scene diagram shows all the 4 scenes of the game, and they also show how the player moves through them. And that's a really useful diagram to have if you have many scenes, so you understand what kind of transition you should be expecting. And for example, right now we have a start menu to game transition when you click start, but we also have a game to start menu transition, and we can see just by looking at this diagram that we're not going to need this transition for very long. It's only a temporary transition to get used to making them, but really the game ought to exit to a win screen or a lose screen, and then those ought to go to start menu, start again. So cool. So what does that mean for us and our game right now? Well, if we take a look at our Unity editor, we can see that we have the 4 scenes. However, they're not wired together yet. We only have the start scene and the game scene, and they're not even wired correctly. So what's the purpose of this video is to use the GDD, to refer back to the GDD, to get those things wired up in the way the final game will eventually be wired up. So that way, when we get to grab the code from our previous Number Wizard game, we can simply slot it into our game scene, and everything else will already be done. Without further ado, let us get started. The first thing I want to do is look at the win scene and create the win scene as we would expect it to. So I'm going to go into my start scene, right? I'm going to copy everything and go into my win scene, delete the camera I already have, and then paste all the things I've got from my start scene. Now I'm not going to need all of them. I'm just going to change the text on a few. I'm only going to need one button, and I'm going to remove the quit button, change where the start button is going to go to the start scene, change the text on a few things. For example, I want to change this guy to say start again, or return to start menu, or return to start. And you'll notice that I'm going to have to change a few things. For example, here the size of the box isn't big enough. Note I'm using Shift and rather Alt to scale from the center. Here we go. I don't need a subtitle here. And we are in our win scene. So let me delete this guy. And for my title, I'm just going to go, congratulations, you have defeated me, but I will rise again. So this is the win scene. So this is the congratulatory scene for the player. And I need to spell this right. Here we go. Congratulations. You have defeated me, but I will rise again. Right, cool. So now I've got this new scene that goes back to start. We can try it out, press play, click, and it does go back to the start. And now what's going to happen next is you're going to do the rest of the scenes. You're going to use this GDD to create a bunch of buttons on the loose screen and the game screen to create the rest of the game. So that way I want the transitions to look like those on this diagram rather than to be the ones they have already. So we've created this arrow between the win screen and the start menu. We've also created the arrow between the start menu and the game scene. It's now up to you to create all the other arrows using buttons in your game. So I'll see you when you've done all that, and we will carry on and see what we can make out of this game. See you soon. Okay, have you got a button that does everything like that? Have we got all the buttons sorted? Well, let's take a look at what I would do. Now we're back in Unity. We've got this win scene sorted. We save it. We jump into our loose scene, and we do pretty much the same thing. We can just create another scene. This is going to be pretty boring. Right, cool. Now I've got a scene here. I kind of like the look of this. Now to wire it up with the right direction, to wire it up to the right scene. Instead of going to game, I'm going to go back to start. And we can do the same for the game scene. So now we've got this guy sorted. We've got the lose scene sorted. Let's take a look at the win. Let's change the color of this guy a little bit. Looks good. That way we can very easily distinguish the two scenes. And go back to our game scene. So now instead of back, I'm going to change that to lose and succeed. So I'm going to create a lose button for now. And I'm going to clone this guy for a succeed button. Cool. So now I just need to wire those guys up. Instead of back to the start menu, I want them to go to the win and lose. And now if I go back to my start scene, saving everything as I go, and press the play button, we should see that the game hangs together as you'd expect. And that's exactly what we want. That's what we want out of this video, is to get the flow of the game going between all the scenes. And you'll notice I've really I've created a mock scene, really. It's a fake scene. I'm not playing a game at all here. I'm just saying I'm losing and I'm winning. And I'm creating the buttons here as a temporary thing to check that we can flow through the entire scene diagram and that everything is wired up as we'd expect it. So right now there's no game. I haven't added the game yet, and we'll do that in another video. But I know now that I've got all those buttons to take me from scene to scene, that it's all hanging together, and that we can create a cohesive game. And then we'll add the game mechanic in another video. And that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you see the benefits of using a game design document and how we can really use a game design document when we're developing to help us draw a rough outline of the game like I've just done here, and to record all the decisions we're making. So cool, I'll see you in another video. Bye for now.